everybody, it's Sid from Cool Movie Gram, your source for everything about cool film. Be sure to hit the subscribe button if you're new here, check me out on my socials, and welcome to the channel. Right, well, yeah, just doing another video. I thought something I wanted to do for a long time, and this is the first time I've kind of like got some time to myself this week to actually sit down and make this video. Of course, I mean, there's been a lot going on. I mean, Shaw Brothers, Shawscope Volume 3 has been announced by Arrow, which originally they were planning to do like more of the Shaw horror films that were produced by the studio rather than the martial arts movies, but it looks like they are still actually sticking to that at the moment, which I would say is a wise move because they still have a lot of great titles to release. And here's me hoping that there's also going to be a Volume 4, which I will also eventually acquire. You know, there's videos, a lot of videos about the titles being released. I mean, one of them being Avenging Eagle, which I absolutely love that film, and definitely I'm really looking forward to it. And I would say check out videos by the ACC lots, you know, most notably the HKB channel. They've done Shaz and Young have done a great video going over the titles that are going to be involved, as well as Dragon. He's done a great job too. Well, Fanatical Dragon, actually, yeah, that's the one I wanted to say. But okay, yeah, today, of course, this is something that should have been released in April because I wanted to do something in regards to the 70 years of Jackie Chan, because it was his 70th birthday this April gone, and well, 4 months later, here we are now. I'm thinking might as well just get this video done because, as many of you know, I'm a huge fan of Jackie Chan. I've been a fan of him since I was a kid, since watching his films on video. I've been acquiring his films on video, had them on VHS, I've had some on VCD, DVD, and of course Blu-ray. And you know, he's always been known. You know, we all know he can fight, he can do stunts, he can do comedy. He's absolutely hilarious, and he's just an all-round great entertainer. But there has been times where throughout his career he's actually given performances which actually prove that he can act. I mean, he may not have been like pretty much Chow Yun-fat or Andy Lau level kind of, or Tony Leung level kind of acting, but he has actually proven that he has actually improved as an actor, and he has actually kind of got the ability to perform well in these films and do more than just kind of jump off buildings and fight multiple guys at the same time, using everything as a weapon. So yeah, might as well just get on with this now. Yeah, let's just start off the list. This is no particular order, so of course, first one I'm going to discuss is Ride On from 2023, directed by Larry Yang. He plays the character Law, who's a former stuntman who was very highly respected at one point in his career, but then eventually a turn of events had actually kind of like put him out of work, and eventually he's resorted to doing smaller gigs and also using his horse as a way of kind of like making money. But eventually you see that his life is not as great as it should be, and he's got his relationship with his daughter is not really the greatest since his marriage broke up, and also the fact that he's also trying to deal with his daughter's boyfriend and trying to be the grumpy old man and the disapproving father. Now, this was kind of like a light-hearted film, very kind of like, it was very comedic at the same time, very kind of like, it's like a love letter to pretty much the stuntmen of that era, and he gave a really great performance of a man who's not perfect by any means, who's got a lot of problems, who's not been the greatest father, has not been really the greatest husband, and you know, he's just trying to kind of like make a better life for him. I mean, there's a lot of kind of like throwbacks and montages of stunts that he's done in the past, and a lot of little kind of like nods to his previous works. And he actually gives a very kind of like interesting performance where sometimes he is actually displaying a lot of great emotions, and even the kind of like exchanges that he has with his daughter's boyfriend is just he's very kind of it's actually quite humorous at the same time. I mean, the action was kind of different. It was very light-hearted in comparison to the most of the serious type of Jackie Chan action, or even like it's not as elaborate as his previous works, but then that comes along with age too. But definitely, I mean, this was probably something that I would love to see more of Jackie do at the moment, where we could actually see that he can actually, he can act, and he's actually proven it on this occasion, and even the other films I'm going to mention too. The next one we're going to discuss is Crime Story from 1993, directed by Kirk Wong, where he plays a character, Eddie Chan, who's a no-nonsense, honest cop who's investigating the kidnapping of a Chinese businessman, which is actually based on like a true story. That's something that happened in Hong Kong around that time too. And yeah, his character Eddie Chan, he's like a very kind of like no nonsense, straight up cop who's trying to get this job done, but then he finds out that the cop that has been assigned as his partner, played by Ken Cheng, is actually involved in this too. And he's actually one of the kidnappers, but he's trying to kind of like do it in a way that won't damage his career, but at the same time, he just doesn't know how to go about this whole situation. But I mean, the film itself is definitely a really great, solid kind of like crime thriller, and we did get some instances of great stunt work and fight choreography involved, as you expect, but it was not as really as comical as you would normally expect, especially a Jackie Chan movie from like the early 90s, where he was still pretty much riding high on like in the peak of his career. Because I would say the prime Jackie, the best era of Jackie Chan films for me, it's like, especially if you're like the fan of his work, I would say it's from like the late 70s up until, which is from like Snake and Eagle Shadow Days, and up until Drunken Master 2, which was in 1994. That period itself was probably the best of his kind of like the peak of his career. That's when we got the best of the Jackie Chan type of movies that he was making. And this was kind of a different one, because this film was originally, it was meant to be for Jet Li, but then he had kind of like he was not happy at Golden Harvest, so he had actually left and decided to work on his own company. And yeah, the director Kirk Wong was actually the bad guy in the movie Twin Dragons on set, and just on a casual conversation just with Jackie, just about what work they've got going on. Yeah, he said, "Oh, yeah, I was making this movie with Jet Li, and he's walked out, and this is what it's about." And Jackie thought, you know what, this would actually be a pretty good exercise to kind of like do something different from the usual kind of films I'm making. And I personally thought it was a good choice. Now, it wasn't really the greatest of box office successes. I mean, it was just a modest hit at the time, but then I think times are more kinder, especially when people have actually revisited it. Thought this is actually a good, serious crime thriller. When Jackie Chan kind of plays a very human character, where you see him kind of like being the hero cop who saves the day, but at the same time he's there who's also kind of like kind of sympathetic to the situation, especially when visiting like a another police officer who was actually in a critical who's in the hospital because of an incident that happens earlier on in the film. And you kind of see that he's actually kind of like a very kind of sentimental person, and at the same time he's very kind of like someone who's committed to his duty, and he actually again showed that he's got some great acting chops. Shinjuku Incident from 2009, directed by Derek Yee, and Jackie Chan plays the character Steelhead. Now, this film itself, again, it was pretty much the very kind of like opposite of what Jackie Chan had been doing for so many years. This is more or less after kind of like where he's already established as like pretty much an on-screen legend in Asian cinema, and then also he had conquered the world after the success of films like Rush Hour, the Shanghai Noon films, and so on and so forth. So, this time around he had actually thought that, make a different movie. It's like a kind of a dark, kind of like gangland crime thriller where Jackie Chan's playing a character, Steelhead, who's an illegal immigrant who enters Japan and eventually kind of like works his way up, eventually leading him to kind of take care of all the other immigrants. And in this, he gets embroiled in the whole kind of the underworld of Tokyo and the Yakuzas. And yeah, this again, his character Steelhead is kind of like shown from this person who's, he is like a very kind of like earnest, like very kind of like honest kind of person, a good-natured person who's kind of surrounded by like just negativity, and eventually kind of like the actions of his brothers, and see how like pretty much all this notoriety and infamy that he kind of ends up kind of building for himself by kind of getting involved in doing hits and doing odd jobs for like the Yakuzas. He kind of builds this reputation for himself, and even his brothers, including support from like amazing actors like Lam Sut and Daniel Wu, they kind of like, they get corrupted. And even the fight scenes are like, this is like the totally anti-Jackie Chan film that Jackie Chan had done. This is very violent. There's even a very inappropriate scene of him, including like some Eastern European women, and it was pretty much just him kind of like being this really kind of savage person, and like showing this savage side to him, but at the same time just, when he's realized that what he's doing is wrong, but the fact is that like he's been put into a horrible circumstance. And in this film it didn't really get the most love when it came out, especially it got banned in China, and although it did okay business in Hong Kong, but his performance was like, yeah, Jackie Chan can actually act. It was a really kind of like a very kind of great performance, especially one of the scenes where one of the characters actually loses their hand. As kind of like anger from another Chinese businessman who's living in Japan. And it's just that whole kind of scene where Jackie Chan kind of deals with the emotion, but he does it in a very kind of like controlled way. And I thought, this guy can act. That was like probably the best acting at that time that I've seen Jackie Chan do in his career. Heart of Dragon, where he played Tapfung or Fred. No, Ted in his in the English dub, which is directed by Sammo Hung from 1985. Yeah, again, he's playing a cop, but this time around he's someone who's actually looking after his mentally challenged brother, played by director Sammo Hung. I mean, of course, Sammo Hung's performance in this film was pretty much stole the show, but Jackie Chan himself, again, he pretty much typecast as a cop quite a lot, especially during the 80s and 90s. But this time around, he was actually kind of like, this is a very emotional film, and this was a very kind of emotional drama. Although he had some kick-ass fight sequences in it too, but then he showed that he had like a very kind of, he had a human side, because you see how like he's actually looking after his brother, but at the same time he's actually had to give up his dreams, and how he's dealing with the whole situation as well. And especially later on down the line, where he's kind of like given a choice of either saving his brother's life, or and risking his career, and how he kind of like pretty much shapes like the whole outcome of the situation. And this film was concurrently pretty much shot at the same time as he was actually filming Police Story. Yes, he was saying at night he was shooting the Police Story films, and then during the day he was filming Heart of Dragon with Sammo Hung. And the fact is that this was kind of like pretty much a complete different film from Police Story, where he was also playing a cop, but which was released in the same year. But even this film was like a minor hit. But it kind of it was Sammo Hung's film, but Jackie Chan himself again proved that he could handle emotions in a certain way depending on the kind of film that he's being signed to, and he did commendable work. The next one is just an honorable mention, which is not included in this list. It was Mr. Han from the Karate Kid remake from 2010, directed by Harold Zwart. Yeah, which is pretty much the updated Mr. Miyagi, and he, in an English-speaking role, he kind of showed his acting chops to the West. Playing a much more older, more mature character, and the film itself, it didn't really hold up in terms of sure, it was a huge box office success, but the film itself didn't really hold up. It didn't have that kind of magic that the 1984 original with Ralph Macchio, which was directed by John Albertson, had. And he's actually reprising his role as Mr. Han. He's actually, as we speak, he's in Toronto, filming the the next Karate Kid movie with Ralph Macchio, which is going to be both characters are going to be in the same movie, but it's going to be after the events of the series Cobra Kai, which is due to be concluding soon. So you got Ralph Macchio and also Jackie Chan involved in this movie too, so this is going to be quite interesting. I am actually kind of looking forward to it because I do actually enjoy Cobra Kai too, so yeah, that should be alright. The final movie on the list is The Foreigner, where he plays Kwan Nok Min. The film was directed by Martin Campbell, of course, the guy who directed films such as The Mask of Zorro, GoldenEye, Casino Royale, Edge of Darkness. So it's he's a very it's a very taut political action thriller about who's a man who runs a takeaway, but eventually his world's turned upside down when his daughter is actually killed in a bomb blast by some terrorists. And the fact that it was shot, part of it was shot in London and also in Belfast as well, and so it kind of gives a different feel. The fact that it's actually an English language film in effect, but it's actually showing that he can also act, but it's like another serious action movie. And it's just the fact that his character is this person who's had been suffering from the loss of his family for so many years, and all that trauma is kind of brought back after his he loses his only remaining daughter to a bomb blast, and he kind of uses the skills that he'd learned when he was in Vietnam. He was actually working with the army in the Vietnam War and battling the Viet Cong. But the fact is that he had actually kind of left as a refugee, but he'd lost his family. He'd lost his wife in a tragic way. But then this was kind of shows that he is actually, the fact is he displays a very broken man. He's very much he's playing a very ordinary, not a very extraordinary person. But then the fact is that he's actually got this past, which makes him okay, there's more to this person. But he plays it in a very nuanced, again, a very nuanced way. I know you're overusing this word in this list, but he does it in a very he handles emotion really good. He shows himself as a very he captures sadness really well in this film. The fact that he has actually improved. As much as I love the movie New Police Story, I thought that especially during some of the emotional scenes, he was just hamming it up way too much in that film, which I think that we've got to see in films like Shinjuku Incident, The Foreigner, and even Ride On. He's actually managed to harness that a bit more, and even in the new Karate Kid movie that he did in 2010, he was able to show that he's able to harness the emotion and not just go OTT hamming it. And he's he's actually he's been acting his ass off, and yeah, and that's what shows the fact that he has got actors such as Pierce Brosnan involved, and a director like Martin Campbell, and he's actually surrounded by a great cast. He just plays upon the strengths of his character, and also his acting performance comes out really well too. And the one thing I'd say is that I would hope that Jackie Chan would this is something that we would see more of, that we're able to see more of him actually acting I mean, because we know that, like, okay, he won't be able to do stunts and fight choreography like the, you know, amazing fight sequences he's had over the years, like in films like Wheels on Wheels, Dragons Forever, even like the More Fighting Police Story, and even some of the stunts that he's been doing since the 80s, when he started kind of doing very stunt heavy kind of films throughout to like the 90s and the 2000s and whatnot. But we know that he won't be able to do that for too long. But then, you know, the fact is that I would love to see more of him kind of like as being like a very serious actor, because he has got great screen presence and he has got that charisma. And you know, these films that have been mentioned, I would say that he has actually proved himself to be a very effective actor, very kind of you know, he's a very skilled actor. The fact that he's actually been working in films since like a very early age, after kind of like you know, since his days at like the Peking Opera School, he's kind of like, you know, he is pretty much, you know, yeah, he is pretty much someone who made for the camera. You know, he's made to be on the silver screen, and even if it isn't, you know, something completely kind of like off kilter, you know, I mean, Jet Li's done it as well. He's kind of like done films like Warlords and even the underrated Ocean Heaven, where he's kind of, which was like a completely non-martial arts movie, but he's actually performed really well as an actor. And yeah, but I would hopefully, you know, I'm hoping that we do get to see more of this kind of Jackie Chan in the future, and you know, until he kind of like just stops making movies. But because you know, we know that he can't jump from building rooftops and all those kind of things anymore, or hang off like helicopters and you know, go down like the middle of like chandeliers in a shopping mall. I mean, you can't do all those things anymore, but I do hope we get to see more of like maybe, you know, another kind of like Shinjuku incident type, or even something along the lines of like maybe Ride On, or you know, just something a bit more. I mean, I know he's actually doing a film called Whispers of Gratitude, which is where he's actually playing a man with like Alzheimer's, and you know, he's already done filming that, and he's actually in Montreal filming the new Karate Kid movie. And so hopefully, you know, this is something that we kind of see as a more regular, and I hope that, you know, this will kind of like maybe put like you know, we kind of see him in a different light. Yeah, that was pretty much my 5 picks of like when Jackie Chan proved he can act. Let me know, I mean, which other films would you say that he's done in his career that you say that like he's actually proved his worth as an actor rather than just a martial artist and an action star? I mean, let me know in the comments. And yeah, I know it's pretty late over here, I'm really tired, but yeah, I'll be back soon with another video. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and take care.